Hello everybody out there in YouTube land, this is Git Lover. Welcome to my channel. This is kind of an introductory clip to this channel and what's going to go on here. Basically, I'm a musician, a Christian. I sometimes write my own music, and I've been playing guitar probably about 30 years, but just recently started to build guitars about 6, 7 years ago. I'd played them for a very long time, and I've always loved them. I love the way they look, the way they feel, the way they sound. Each one of them is different. It has its own unique type of voice, and there's each one of them. There's a certain way you can play them that will get the most out of them. All kinds of things like that. The guitar is an incredible instrument. I even like the way they smell. I really love guitars very much, and it's always been a dream of mine to build, but I never, I never understood how it all went together, until I guess about 14 years ago, and I began uh, to start realizing that, the guitars that I own, they could use a setup, or they might need some adjustment or repair, and I wasn't capable of paying for those things. I tried for a while, but it was just too expensive, and I couldn't afford to pay for repairs, setups, that kind of thing, tech work, and things like that. So basically, it was sink or swim. Learn how to do these things, or live with a guitar that you can't reach your potential on it because the setup or the way it was, actually sometimes the way they were built, uh, was holding me back, and I had to fix some things on them because the manufacturer didn't care enough to do that before they sent it out, like messed up frets and things like that. That when you're a beginner, you don't really notice till you start really learning how to play and playing other people's guitars and realizing my guitars, they don't feel like that. They don't play like that. Why? And you start asking around, and they say, well, it's this and this and this and this, and uh, you know, you get to a point where it's like, well, I can either pay somebody to do it, or I can learn to do it myself. So about 14 years ago or so, I began to learn to play my own to work on, repair, and set up my own instruments. And I started to do that, and I started to work on friends' instruments, band members' instruments, things like that. And I began to learn how they went together, what made them work, things like that. What was critical to the way to make the thing play in tune, or help it to hold its tune, or make it play well, easy to play, and on and on and on. Why it was making these funny noises? What's wrong with the electronics, and how do I fix that? And all kinds of things like that. And somewhere along the way, that dream of building guitars never died. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one day I woke up and I realized, I know enough about how they go together, about how they're built, about why they're done, why this is done this way or this is done that way, and you know, I know enough that I really think that I could build a guitar, and that was uh, beginning. The beginning actually was I ordered parts and found some of them I ordered and some of them I found used, and I put together a strap, from parts, and I set it up and did all the work on it, and it was one of the best playing guitars that I ever held in my hands, and one of the best sounding. And I thought, well, that's pretty awesome. If I can do that, maybe I can build them from scratch. And I started uh, collecting wood and tools, and began to build. Built my first guitar, like I said, 6 or 7 years ago, and Haven't stopped building since. But this guitar that I want to talk about today is what I call a faux acoustic. It's basically a stage acoustic. It's a solid body size as far as the thickness goes, but it has an acoustic body shape. This is a double O shape, a Gibson Nail double O shape, and with my own cutaway. And it has a solid braced top. It's a solid spruce braced top. Thickness, just like a standard acoustic guitar would be thickness. Uh, Braced. The body is hollow, and the instrument has two braces. If you don't count the bridge plate, which is actually the bridge plate and the bridge are actually one of the biggest braces or the strongest braces on a guitar, acoustic guitar. But most people don't realize the part that they play in the stability of the top. But anyway, it has two braces, the two parallel braces, or semi-parallel, because they don't run the same equal distance down the top. They start at the heel of the neck and they begin to spread in sort of an A shape until they cross the feet, the outer feet of the bridge here. They continue down on either side of the bridge, continuing that taper where it's spreading away. They're spreading away from each other till they get about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the sides of the body, which is 1/2 inch sides. That way, I hollowed the body out all the way, except for here where the neck connects, and it's a bolt-on neck. So I had to cut a neck packet there, and I had to make sure I had enough wood there. But it's cut out along here and cut out here all the way around the top of the guitar. 1/2 inch of wood is left. It's down to 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch depth. I believe it's 1 1/4 inch depth. The body, the top is made out of Sitka spruce. The finish is Minwax wipe-on poly. It looks a lot like an oiled finish or maybe a French polished finish, but it is actually wipe-on poly. And I normally finish in lacquer, but I thought I would try the wipe-on poly, and I pretty much like the result of it, but it's not by any means making me give up lacquer. You know, I like the way lacquer works. I like the fact that I can repair lacquer really easily with some of the polyester finishes while they are bulletproof. If you damage them, they're a lot more difficult to repair and make it where you can't tell there was any damage. So that's why I like lacquer. Also, I like the look of lacquer. I don't know of any other finish that I'm aware of that gives quite the same kind of depth to the finish as a good lacquer finish does. But lacquer has its downsides. It's a finicky finish. You know, you can't lay leather on top of it for a long time. You can't hang it on stands that rubber stands and stuff like that for a long time, or you're going to get burn marks in it from the chemical reaction from those products and the lacquer itself. It requires some care, but it's so does a French polish or anything like that. But the beauty, in my opinion, of lacquer outweighs, for me as a builder, also the repair aspects and the workability of the finish and stuff like that. To me, is worth it to finish in lacquer. But anyway, this finish is a polyurethane, a wipe-on poly, but it's got a braced, thicknessed Sitka spruce top with a rosewood bridge, a bone saddle, The back is a hollowed out white ash. Just a beautiful wood, in my opinion. It's usually very heavy, but when you hollow it out like that, it's not very heavy at all. In here, I have a 9-volt battery, which powers a preamp, in-pin preamp. It's a Fishman Power Jack preamp with a soundboard transducer, just a little dime-sized piezo transducer that's attached to the top, the underside of the top, in the best place I could find that I thought that it sounded the best. And with the piezos, and even a lot of times with your undersaddle pickles, if you're playing through an amp, or you're playing through a PA that's designed for that kind of thing, you don't really need a preamp. Just a regular in-pin jack will work. But there are some PAs that are not designed to handle that level. And also, if I run long cable runs and things like that, the guitar can end up sounding kind of thin once it reaches the board. With the preamp, it gives it a little bit of a boost, brings the signal up to where it sounds good in situations like that. But anyway, the holes here, this instrument was actually not designed to play acoustically. It's designed to give an acoustic sound through a PA or an acoustic amp on a stage, not sitting around with a bunch of friends. It's not designed for that, although it does have a pretty nice acoustic sound. I think that sounds pretty good, It sounds pretty good acoustically. It's not plugged in. It's not plugged into anything or anything like that. But these holes here, I put here. I didn't really want to put a sound hole in it because, like I said, I really didn't design it for an acoustic sound. But I thought, while I was sitting around on the couch and wanted to fiddle around with it or something, I thought that, these holes might give it a little bit more resonance, which they did. I originally had the top solid with no holes in it, and it sounded like somebody that put strings on a drum. A banjo comes to mind. It sounded like a tin can. It didn't sound very good at all until I put these holes in here. But they're basically put there for my benefit when I want to play it acoustically, and I put it close to the lower bout here, the upper lower bout, so that it would kind of smack me in the face. Not really to project, but sort of just to give me some volume when I was playing. So that's the deal on that. It also, if you look at it, it's not joined at the same spot. The neck is not, as most acoustics, especially this body style, most of them are joined at the 14th fret. I chose to join this at the 16th fret like an electric, so that there was plenty of room down here to get to all the high frets, so that if I wanted to fiddle around with like acoustic kind of leads and stuff like that, I had complete access to the every single all 22 frets on this instrument. It has Babylonian inlays. I don't know if you can see them, But the frets are Stumac 0152s. Uh, they're kind of a almost a medium jumbo kind of deal. The neck is a bolt-on flamed maple. Don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got a beautiful flame maple neck on it. Right there's your headstock. Goto tuners, and the truss rod cover is wood called yellow cirrus. Has a corian nut because that's the material that I had laying around. Stock plastic pins. Just like I said, white ash back, 1/4 inch black binding all around the top. Rosewood fretboard. Rosewood for the bridge has Martin bluegrass gauge, All American or whatever they call it, American bluegrass gauge or whatever they. I don't know if they make them anymore. I bought them at a pawn shop here because I didn't want to drive 25 miles or 30 miles just to buy a pack of strings. I prefer what is it? EJ 19s, which is Diodario's bluegrass strings, or elixirs are pretty good. But on this guitar, the EJ19 sound better, in my opinion. They don't last as long, and you have to change them more often, but the elixirs on this guitar makes it sound a lot thinner than the Diodarios in the same gauge uncoated. So take that for what it's worth. Every guitar is one thing that I've learned is that some guitars can be really particular about what kind of strings you put on them, and then others could care less. You can put anything you want on it; it's going to sound good. It just depends. Every guitar is different. They're just like people. Each of them have their own character and their own identity, and it's best to learn what that is, and then play them accordingly, and choose things like strings and stuff accordingly. That's just my philosophy. I'm not telling you any of this is fact. This is all my opinion and my experience. If you have experience that differs, well, bless you. Go with what you know. It's the best I can tell you. But it does sound very nice to my ears acoustically. I think it finger picks real well. It sounds pretty good unplugged. But now, I'd like to plug her in. Now, hold on one second. It's going to be a big pop. There you go. Now she's plugged into my PA. Now I'm going to do basic, simple stuff because I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not a great guitar player anyway. But I'm not trying to impress anybody or anything like that. I wanted to kind of get out of the way of the guitar and just let you hear what the instrument sounds like. It's very lively and alive electrically, acoustically, when you plug it in to a PA amp. So let's. One of my favorites. So, I think it does its job, what it was designed to do. Now, couple of remarks actually. The soundboard transducers that I used in this guitar, they're a lot more prone to feedback than, say, an under saddle transducer, excuse me, would be. But especially if you have sound holes and stuff like that. But I've got two PA speakers and a 200-watt PA head, and I'm pretty much cranking the channel that this instrument is on, and the room that I'm in is an 8-foot by 10-foot room. So, and as you can see, I'm not having any problems with feedback. Now, if I was to turn toward the speaker, I would probably be in trouble, but there's one right over there, not 4 feet away, 3-4 feet away from me, probably more like 3 foot 35 inches or so from me, and it's not feeding. I mean, and that's about 2 foot away from the speaker right now. So I mean, it's not feeding, and I played it at an event at my church through the PA, turned up, and had not a moment's problem with feedback or any other thing like that. So it does pretty well, and I'm really, pleased with the instrument, and I hope that you've enjoyed kind of this introduction to my uh, channel, and the introduction of this guitar. Hopefully later on I will be able to put more videos up of instruments that I've built, even instruments that I own, that for anybody that might be interested. I have an old Ventura art shop that my father gave me, that I would like to kind of review. I've got an Epiphone EL00, which, it's an Epiphone, and it's not a very expensive guitar, but it sounds pretty doggone good for the size of it. I think it's a sleeper in the Epi line. I don't even know if they make them anymore. I believe they still do. But if you ever run across one, play it. You might be pleasantly surprised. You know, uh, Whatever comes to my mind, I might later on do some instructional stuff about how to set up guitars and cut a nut and all that kind of thing. Just depends on kind of what kind of mood hits me, and maybe someone might ask, or just whatever I get around to thinking about doing from time to time. But I appreciate you taking the time out to watch this video and pay attention and listen to my guitar and my big mouth rambling on, about all things that I like to talk about. And, bless you. Hope you have a wonderful day, and hope you look me up again. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.